Hello and welcome back to another history video, and this time we will be looking at a quite interesting topic from World War II, which is cavalry, namely German cavalry. Now, when people hear cavalry and World War II, what they mostly think about is that infamous Polish attack from the beginning of the war, which has been debunked or at least recontextualized in many videos on this YouTube platform, so I won't be talking about that. But the Germans did actually also use cavalry quite a bit, especially on the Eastern Front. In fact, they had several cavalry brigades, and also one should mention that much of their infantry division scouts were actually mounted on cavalry, especially in early war. Were mounted on horses, I should say. And so today, what I thought would be quite interesting is to look at cavalry right at the end of the war, because the Germans actually had several cavalry divisions right up until 1945, all of which were on the Eastern Front. This picture, by the way, is I think from 1941 or 1942, showing SS Cavalry. And this is also the first thing we should maybe talk about, is why did they use cavalry? Like, what was it for? And basically, you have to think about it like this. It's like a slightly weaker infantry division, but it's fast like a panzer division. But at the same time, you can send it into some kind of horrible swamp or other terrain like that without, where a tank division wouldn't work, right? So it can be used in roadless terrain. So these cavalry divisions were mostly used against partisans or to mop up Russian forces that had somehow gotten behind the enemy lines during the counterattacks in early 1942, for example, in the Rzeszów area. And that was basically how this got started. Now, as the war dragged on, I would say, from my personal opinion, they probably got less useful, but the Germans still relied on them, or they still kept upgrading their cavalry brigades to divisions, as you will see. So that was always a bit weird to me, like how useful is the cavalry division to you if the Russians are rolling down the Berlin Autobahn, But that's what they did. Now, we will look at 3 units today. The first one is the 8th SS Cavalry Division. And this one is kind of interesting. First of all, we were not able to find documents for that up to 1945. Now, this unit was destroyed in January or February 1945 during the siege of Budapest, where they were encircled and were used in urban combat. So I'm guessing they probably ate most of their horses at this point. We did find some documents from early 1944 when these divisions were actually created. Now, we did look on the online platform of the German archive, and there are some documents from later, but they are not digitized yet. So at some point I might actually make a follow-up video. But for now, let's look at what we have about this cavalry division, the SS one. So this is what we found from the 1st of March 1944, which is when this division was being formed from various cavalry brigades. And the 8th, or from one SS Cavalry Brigade, I should say, and other units that were attached. Now, the 8th SS Cavalry Division was called Florian Geyer, which was this guy here. Florian Geyer, as the picture helpfully informs us. Now, he was a knight in the early modern, late Middle Ages period in Germany, and kind of like a liberator or a freedom fighter, one would say. He fought in the peasant wars on the side of the peasants, and so he fought basically against the feudal system, which is what endeared him to the Nazis, I would say, because not really this guy, but many of the proponents of the peasant cause at the time were for one unified German state with one emperor at the top of it, cutting out the noblemen, right? And this is something that was attractive to the Nazis. Now, Florian Geyer himself was actually one of the more radical ones who kind of went for a certain, or fought for a certain proto-communism. He was basically fighting for a classless society to a degree. although still, of course, a Christian one, so not really a communist. But this makes it quite interesting because not only was this SS division named after him, but also at least one unit that I could find in the GDR. So both the Nazis and the socialists could kind of use him as a hero, I guess. And also, interestingly, it's not, or he's not the only guy from that period in German history who actually had an SS division named after him. The other one, maybe more famous today, was Götz von Berliching, who had the 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division named after him. And this is his hand. His hand actually got shot off by a cannonball. And so that got replaced by this. As you can see, he had several ones. Maybe one was for ass wiping and one was for eating. Who knows? But yeah, so very colorful character. His motto or chosen saying was "lick my ass." He also fought for the peasants, but he switched sides as soon as it became clear that the peasants were losing. Florian Geyer never did that. He died fighting. But yeah, let's go back to the division. So, first of all, if you watched some of the earlier videos, you will see that this looks a bit different. The SS had different paperwork to a degree. Namely, they used these pre-printed kind of forms, which included the weapons in the front here in this kind of format. They didn't just print the weapons on the back like the normal divisions did, which is, makes it a bit more handy, I think. Although there's sometimes problems with that, but we'll come to that maybe later. But okay, now... what should be noted here, which is different to most of the stuff we looked at, is that there's kind of two types of paperwork here. So there's always a soll, which means should, so how many they should have had, and ist, how many they actually had. And since this is from when the division was created, many of the heavy weapons are still missing. So if we look here, this is the artillery, 15 centimeter and 10.5 centimeter howitzers, which is pretty normal, similar to a normal infantry division. But as you can see, for both, so there were, for example, this battery here was supposed to have 4 howitzers, 2 light machine guns, and they wrote down in Sharpie or whatever 00, so they didn't receive these yet. The same is true, for example, over here for the Stuks. So they were supposed to have 31 Stuks, 1 command, and 3 10-Stück batteries, not delivered yet. That doesn't mean they never got them. As I said, this is like a snapshot from when they created that division. What's interesting to me is, so this is like where normally the infantry would be. Obviously, it's the cavalry in this case. And one thing that already caught my eye here is that each SS cavalry company had 18 light machine guns, and they actually had at this point received them as well. Many of the heavy machine guns weren't there yet, but the light machine guns were there. 18 light machine guns means that, assuming a triangular setup for their forces. Now, I have not been able to find any KSTNs, so TOEs, for a cavalry division, especially not an SS one. I don't know if these exist. Certainly the normal sources for these don't have them. But to me, if we assume, as I said, if we assume a triangular setup for the platoons, that would mean 2 light machine guns in every squad, which is quite a bit. That's normally something that you see in like a Panzergrenadier unit. So yeah, lots of machine guns, quite interesting, yeah. And this unit here, it says zurzeit im Einsatz, these were already in the front lines while the division was created. So yeah, it didn't really go according to plan, as you can see here. Let's look at these. These are how many people they had. Now, for the weapons, as you can see, most of them were still missing. So you could see there pistols, MP, rifles, light machine guns, heavy machine guns. Light grenade launchers, none planned because the 5 centimeter ones were outdated at this point. Medium grenade launchers and so on. Flamethrowers, and some interesting stuff here about PAK, light infantry guns. Interestingly here, Leichtgeschütze, so these are recoilless rifles like the Fallschirmjäger divisions used. They weren't supposed to have any, and they didn't have any, but we will see them a bit later. As I said earlier, no Stuks yet. These are medium armored cars, light armored cars. They were supposed to have some, hadn't arrived yet. Now, what's of course interesting, since this is a cavalry division, how many horses did they actually have? And here we see 5,633 riding horses. They didn't get a lot of them yet. Pack horses, light drawing horses, heavy drawing horses, and heaviest drawing horses, which I think are these kind of horses you sometimes see that look like they're like on steroids or something. They were supposed to have 4 of these, but they didn't have any. Wonder what they were supposed to draw. I'm guessing either the 488mm guns, or maybe the 415 or 150mm howitzers would be my educated guess, or maybe some other equipment. But yeah, so this is how the Germans pictured their SS Cavalry Division, Florian Geyer. As I said, this is just a snapshot. They were later destroyed in heavy urban combat in Budapest, but I find it quite interesting here. It's really a more mobile infantry division, but the thing is, what is weird, more machine guns, and they still had quite a bit of artillery. Now, the normal army created 2 cavalry divisions later in 1945, actually, from the 3rd and the 4th Cavalry Brigades. But this was just a renaming thing, right? I looked at it and there weren't any changes. They just renamed them 2 divisions. Now, how did these cavalry brigades look in 1945? So we first have here a 3rd Cavalry Division, or 3rd Cavalry Brigade at this point. And as you can see, already, if we look at the artillery, LG, Leichtgeschütz. So these actually had 3 4-gun batteries of recoilless rifles, similar to a Fallschirmjäger division, which is interesting. Makes a lot of sense though, because as I said, you want to have mobile forces here, and also 8 heavy mortars, 120mm, which are the same ones that we have for the Russians on Oglidov. Basically, picture the same one but painted yellow or whatever. And then over here they had a smaller unit of 10.5 centimeter howitzers, standard stuff. They did have their Stucks here, but not quite as many, and I'm a bit confused because this is a normal Stuck symbol, but then they have this here, which indicates maybe a howitzer, so these might have been assault howitzers, but I'm not 100% certain what that is. Could be like a Grillo or something as well. But yeah, that's a bit odd. But yeah, they did have some kind of assault gun here, and also a escort platoon. Yeah. So the infantry is different. They did have way fewer. They only have 9 light machine guns here, so 1 per squad. So that's different from the SS. Not quite as well equipped with light machine guns here. Yeah, the rest fairly standard. Now, if we look at the weapons, as a normal Heer unit, they have their weapons on the back, and they printed them on. Apparently they put this report on a map that they didn't need, maybe from like an area that they already lost. So they were like, fuck it, not gonna use that one anytime soon. Anyway, if we look at it, what does jump out: 1,081 SDG 44s, quite a few. I would say that those are enough SDG 44s to equip a large percentage of their cavalry squads. So while they didn't have as many machine guns, they were apparently mostly equipped with assault rifles, which is quite interesting. Also rifle grenade launchers and some snipers, but not a lot of snipers or self-loading rifles, but they were loaded up with STGs. And they also had, apparently in reserve, 4 Russian 8 centimeter mortars. Now if we look at the 4th Cavalry Brigade, it's actually a little bit different. Now, this general setup is the same for the infantry. As you can see, they took some more losses at this point already. So they only had 7 machine guns left here, for example, but 9 machine guns seems to have been the normal amount that they would have had per company. And also here again, Stucks, and this time with a normal symbol, so that's not quite as confusing to me. And the artillery, no Leichtgeschütze. Instead, they had 3 batteries of the heavy 120mm mortars. Yeah, that's a bit different. The howitzers here are the same, although they didn't specify the caliber. And here again, if we look at their weapons, 1,233 SDGs. So this is pretty standard for the army ones. They were basically completely equipped with SDGs. Seems to have been standard equipment for them. And again here, in this case, they actually had some captured weapons. MG26T, Czech Bren ancestor. MG116F, that's French FM24/29. MG120R is a Russian DP. Then some Russian submachine guns as well, and one Russian PUC, 45mm. These are not actually drawn into here. Sometimes, if they take the paperwork seriously, they actually mark which weapons are captured in here. But doesn't seem to be the case here. This could mean two things. First of all, usually when they do that, the captured machine guns are, for example, the ones here in the batteries, right? So they will have the Russian machine guns guarding their 4 guns, for example. That's pretty standard stuff. Or it could also mean that they didn't use them at all and just had them on hand somewhere, for example, in the Feldersatzabteilung, in the replacement. Maybe they're somewhere in here in the replacement troops. So yeah, German cavalry still in use in 1945 and mostly equipped, at least not the SS ones, but the normal army ones, mostly equipped with assault rifles. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a nice day.